Begin transmission. Oh, hi. Glad you're here. I'm glad to be with you. I just wanted to share a quick tale. Let's see. Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up. When Tron Legacy came out, it was the first time I hung out with my son's mother. When as a group we went to that movie together. I was a lifelong Tron fan, and then she had never seen the original. She loved Legacy, watched the original, loved the original, so she became a huge Tron fan. About a year and a half later, we had a child, and on our way to the doctor, when wanting to find out if it was a boy or a girl, we already had names picked out. And I had a Clue action figure from Legacy that said random phrases when you clicked a button. And I clicked the button right before we left to find out what we were having. And it said, Flynn lives. Turned out it was a boy. We named him Flynn. So when Disney announced a Tron Lightcycle ride, but it was only going to be overseas, I was devastated. I was like, I got to ride that ride someday. It immediately went to the top of my bucket list. And then one day they finally added that ride to Disney World. And I was like, someday before I die, I have to ride that ride with my son. Cut to a couple of months ago, a few months ago, whatever it was, I was talking to my best friend who often, her dad goes to Disney World every year, and they had just gone recently, and they were planning on going again. And the last time they had went, the Tron ride wasn't done yet, but I was like, man, with as much as he just, y'all just go to Disney World, I was like, we got to find it in our power to get me and Flynn to Disney World. We got to go. We got to make this happen. Less than 48 hours after I said that to her, I randomly got a text from my son's grandparents, my baby mama's parents, saying, hey, we're going to Disney World. Do you want to come with us? If that's not divine intervention, part of the program, I don't know what it is. So we ended up going to Disney World, my son and I, the first week of June, just days before my birthday, and just a few weeks after his birthday. And it was an overall amazing experience. I could go on and on about how wonderful Disney World was. So I'm just going to make 3 videos talking about, the highlights, the most important thing, and the second most important thing. So this one would be the most important thing. Riding a freaking Lightcycle. So we get to Florida on the day before we're going to the park, because we only went to Magic Kingdom one day and Hollywoodland one day. So that morning that we were going to go to the Magic Kingdom, I got as much information as I could about getting on that ride and how it's a virtual queue. So you have to have the Disney World app. It's got to be linked in. It's got to, all that. And then right at 7 o'clock in the morning, local time, they open the queue to get in line for the Tron ride for the day. We had one shot. So starting at like 6:55, and one of my friends who had ridden the ride a couple months prior, one of my coworkers, gave me this advice, thank goodness. So I kept refreshing the page, nonstop. Refresh. And I believe I was in the middle of refreshing right when it clicked over to 7 a.m. And boom, this button popped up. Get in line. Boom, I hit it immediately. You're in group 47 or whatever it was. And I had the other members of our party were doing the same thing. Boom, I got in line. 10 seconds later, they're refreshing and it says, sorry, all the spots are taken. We were extraordinarily lucky to get in line, period, and we were one of the last groups of the day. So we get to Disney World, and again, I could go on and on about all of this, but for this particular video, I'm going to focus on this particular experience. So we get to the park, and my son and I are like, bye, because they're going through the deal. I wasn't familiar, had never been to Disney World before. I'd been to Disneyland when I was a kid, but haven't been to Disney World before. So my son and I are like, okay, bye. We'll meet up with y'all later. We got to go make sure we're in the vicinity for when it's time for us to officially get in line. And we head to that area, and I'll never forget seeing the sign. And then I looked up and I saw, where the coaster is. And then I saw it go by. I saw these light cycles race by before my eyes. And tears immediately ran down my face. I could not believe that I was looking at the Lightcycle roller coaster in person before my eyes. Like it was happening. Like I said, this was the top of my bucket list ever since they announced this ride. So if someone said you could do anything in the world right now, I would have said I want to ride that Tron ride. And my hope was to one day do it before I died, to have this opportunity so suddenly, unexpectedly, and perfectly mapped out. It was this early. It's done. Like whoa! And the fact that it came so close to us not even getting in line, but we did. It was our destiny. That's my son's birthright. So we're hanging around. We ride some other rides. We get some of the official Tron bit drinks or whatever they were. That was fun. And then they finally cue us to the line, and we go in the queue, and you've got the giant laser that's beaming us through, and then you go into the dark room, and you're going onto the grid, and like this experience was the happiest experience of my life. Like, it was the greatest experience of my life. I've told other people, like my brother, there's a particular picture that's the thumbnail, so spoiler alert, because we made it, but it was sketchy there for a minute. I said, look, that's a picture of the happiest moment of my life. And he would say, oh, what about the birth of your child? Sure, the birth of my child is one of the greatest moments of my life, obviously. But to compare the two, one is becoming a father and being gifted a baby. Okay, great. But the other is after building a relationship with my son for 12 years. He's 12 when he rode this ride. I was 40. To take my best friend of 12 years, for us to both enjoy this experience that we wanted nothing more of, yeah, that's a happier moment than meeting him. Sure, one of the greatest moments of my life, but experiencing this with him as a child and my best friend, of course, is the greatest. That's even better. That's like comparing, the first time you met your best friend and the greatest experience you ever had with your best friend. Right, that one's going to be better because you have a closer relationship. And anyway, I already proved my point. So anyway, this was the happiest moment of my life. So we go through the queue, and then they put you in that one room where they're counting down, and there's like this wall, and then all of a sudden the wall turns clear, and you look down into the grid. And we were on the grid. I couldn't believe it. My son and I went to the grid. I kept dreaming of a world I thought I'd never see. But then, one day, I got in. We got in. We were on the grid. We're walking down. We see Kevin Flynn's disc that's powering the whole thing. I'm just getting more and more excited as we get there. And then we finally get to those light cycles. My son, by the way, was terrified while we were waiting to actually get in line, because he's never ridden an actual roller coaster before. And this is a roller coaster. People get confused. Oh, was that like a green screen and then they just like virtual reality like that Avatar? No, this is a roller coaster. And I've been on a ton of roller coasters in my life, but he had never been on a single one. This was his first. How amazing of an experience was this? Let me tell you. So we get to the light cycles. I wanted to be on the front. Maybe someday I'll get to go back, but I'm happy. Don't get me wrong. But we ended up on the very back car, but it was still, because I remember them telling us, you're going to be in the back, but don't worry, it's going to be they're going to be light cycles, because the back is where they keep those ones where you just sit for people that are too large for the cycle. It is Florida. So we're in the back, but then we climb on these light cycles where this is the first time this is the most unique roller coaster I've ever been on. And I've been on a lot. I've even been on a standing up roller coaster. But this is where you're like pretty much on your belly, just like you would be on a light cycle, and then they lock the back of your calves in, and then when you pull back on the handlebars, the thing goes down on your back, latches you in, and Flynn and I were sitting there. We were so excited, and then they're like, "Here we go!" And right as the ride starts moving, and we're about to go into the little launch tunnel thing, I just hollered, "Out there is our destiny!" Because I knew that, part of the ride was going to go outside, but I thought that that was going to be the majority of the ride. You go outside, and then, yeah, it's over. I had no idea that the huge building that's connected to the tracks that you see outside is the ride as well. So then we're sitting there, and it's getting ready to launch. 3, 2, 1. And right before it launched, and my son told me this after the fact, because once it launched, I was mind blown, and I remember having the thought near the beginning of, I hope Flynn's doing okay, because I'm not even going to look over and check on him, because if he's having a horrible time, I'm not going to let it spoil my fun. But he said that right before we launched, he said out loud, "I fight for the user." And then boom, we went off. And he said that that was his hype himself up and be brave moment. But once it started, he was having a blast. He was not scared whatsoever. He was scared going up to it. But once we launched, he was on cloud nine. And boy, when we launched, holy cow. That's what the picture is in the thumbnail, is the actual launch. And it launches at 62 miles an hour. That look on my face was how my face was the entirety of the ride. I was screaming with a huge smile and shock and awe of the most surreal moment of my life. And Flynn had a blast as well. And then this ride is going through, you go so fast. It was way faster than I expected. So they launch you at 62 miles an hour. You go outside, you go through, and then you go in the building and you get the music. You get all the cool Tron lights, and you're going through, and then eventually you go through the thing, and then you're racing Clue, and then Clue comes up like right beside me because I was on the right side, and then they're projecting, like you're racing these racers, and then they project it on the inside, and then Clue's racing up right beside me on the right, and I was like, ah, and I reached out and I like punched him, and then as soon as I did that, he went up to like in front of us, but then he wiped out and he crashed, and then we got first place. My God. We stepped off that ride, and we were walking out where they've got like the life-size Lightcycle on display and stuff. And I was overwhelmed. And I cried again. Because I did it. We did it. There was no more, I have to ride that ride someday. It was, we rode it. We rode Lightcycles. It's done. That is something that I did with my son. My son Flynn rode a Lightcycle with me. No one can take that away from us. We rode Lightcycles. Like I said, I've been on a crap ton of roller coasters in my life. This was by far the greatest, most exhilarating, most fun, insane, best ride I have ever been on in my life. There is no way there's another ride on this planet that's as good as this. The music, the story, the speed, the thrill, the exhilaration. Oh, so then we went to the gift shop and I made it a point to buy every single thing that had my son's name on it. You know. Luckily, they didn't have too many things with his name on it because boy, was I broke the second we left that store. I also got a backpack and a disc and a light-up jacket. Yeah. My son and I rode Lightcycles together. No one can take that away from us. Flynn lives indeed. Okie dokie. End transmission.